Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here, and welcome to the continuing deep dive into the depths of Shadows of Brimstone. And we are finally to, I think, one of the things that if you have the money to invest in the game, one of the things that makes Shadows of Brimstone such a fantastic dungeon crawl, and that is the enemies. There are so many enemies in this game. I want to say it has like the most enemy variety of any dungeon crawl. Maybe Warhammer Quest if you use everything from the bestiary. Maybe Dungeon Universalis, but this is up there. I don't even own everything for the game, and the variety and the just sheer amount of enemies. I mean, each one of these cards is a different enemy that you can face. Some we've taken a look at before. And then I have this whole stack here, which represents all of the enemies that I am in my core subset, in my custom subset that I am playing with. So we've got all of these here. So altogether, I mean, you are looking at just a huge number of, of enemies there. And one thing I really do like and one thing I really do appreciate about the game is how when you face off an enemy, almost everything that you need for encountering that enemy is included on one card and maybe a couple cards that you might have to reference. But you don't have to be looking through books or looking things up. All of your information is at hand. And so that makes having a lot of variety easy. While Warhammer Quest has a ton of enemy variety, until you know all of the keywords and special abilities by heart, there is a lot of looking things up in the bestiary. The same with Dungeon Universalis, that even has more because you kind of have to build the enemies with all of the other item cards and skill cards. And so it's not easy to keep a lot of variety in those games because you just have to keep looking things up. With Shadows of Brimstone, it's super easy to just say, hey, I want to play this mission and I want to face 20 different enemies. So you can build a threat deck with 20 completely different enemies and you won't have to be constantly looking things up while you are playing. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of start going through the enemy expansions. And it looks like we're going to be starting with some of the deluxe enemy sets, working our way through the non-deluxe sets, and then probably on to some of the mini bosses and that kind of stuff. I'm not quite sure how many parts this subsection is going to be, so let's get cracking and see what we see. So first up, we have the deluxe enemy pack, the Serpent Men of Jarango, or Jargano. I think I keep calling the swamps Jarango. It's Jargano. I need to remember that. Made-up name. This is probably the first. It was either this or the Void Sorcerer, the Masters of the Void, that I got first. I think these were two of the earliest deluxe enemy packs to hit retail. I remember buying them on Amazon. And this might be why I prefer the swamps as a setting as opposed to the ancient city, just because it seemed to me that they had cooler enemy packs such as this for the swamps. So this says the swamps of Jargano are home to countless deadly creatures and plants and tiny carnivorous brain flies to towering swamp raptors and worse. Yes, we will be taking a look at the swamp raptor at some point. But the savage serpent men that call Jargano their homes are perhaps the most deadly of all. Fiercely tribal, the serpent men have built a civilization on brutal warfare in massive stone temples to their serpent gods. They stalk the swamps, hunting their prey and protecting their territory from outsiders and other tribes that would conquer their lands. Though highly intelligent, they are cold-blooded killers, calculating, and ruthless. There are countless tribes of Serpentmen, each with a different culture and style all their own. These tribes are led by great shamans that are leaders of the community, but they are also powerful fighters and wield voodoo magic that can call forth the wrath of the serpent gods themselves. All right, so nice little lore there. And then in each of the books, we are going to get our a little bit of the information on the models you're going to get. So you will have your Serpent Men warriors, your Serpent Men shaman, and then it's going to have a little bit of detail about the new cards that you're going to get. And here we have those cards. So we have the Serpent Men, the Grand Shaman. So this is kind of like your super Serpent man. And then he or she will have serpent magic. So here are the Juju trinkets. So these are like relics that the shaman might possess. You have tribal tattoos, a tribal voodoo doll, a Vanessa rattler. Oh, that is super cool. Kind of like a magic talisman made out of a rattle. And a hex bag. And then you will have your tribes. So again, these are going to be different things that augment your serpent men when you fight them. So you never quite know what kind of serpent men you are going to be fighting. You might be up against the King Moccasin tribe, the Bloodbane tribe, the Diamond Scale tribe, the Striking Shadow tribe, the Ghost Snake, the Yellowtail tribe. And there are 3 of these. These have no extra bonus, so you would mix those in just to kind of throttle the deck. And then the first time you face off against one, you would draw one to see what you are facing. And whoops, a couple more, one more trinket here, the Juju wand. And then the shaman will also employ these magical spells. And they will have a deck of spells that they have access to. You have things like Hex Traps, Puppet Master, Hex Bolts, Ghost Bites. There's a normal power and then a mastery power that you can use. Rapid Regeneration, Hex Bolt, and Savage Assault. So those are all the cards you're going to get. And some of these enemy packs do come with chits, but I have not pulled any of the chits out just because there's so many enemy packs to look at, and I have them kind of scattered in different places. I absolutely love this drawing here. I think that is one of the best drawings in the entire game. That is so cool. But you're going to learn a little bit about the Serpent Man tribes there, about your Juju trinkets, the Grand Shaman, poison markers, hex hits, and you have 2 new missions in here. And here we have a pictorial depiction of the coloration of your different tribes. And we have 2 missions. So the deluxe enemy packs usually come with 2 missions. We have Human Sacrifice and Warring Tribes. And then you get a little bit of an FAQ. And there is an optional rule here that I never play with, but I should. It's really cool. It's kind of thematic. When you take a search action, you can do a lore test to draw a card from the tribe deck so you know what kind of tribe you're going to be facing before you might stumble upon one. A little bit of knowledge, so that's kind of cool. And then a little painting guide. So I don't have the boxes for any of these. I tossed these small boxes. Unfortunately, it does appear that the artistic credits were probably included on the box. So I'm not going to be able to go through who did the illustrations for these. And then we have our 2 enemy cards here. We have our Serpent Shaman. They are Serpent Men, Tribal, Magic, and Jargano keywords. They have the powers of retreating, serpent magic, trinkets, slithering, and darkstone weapons. They have a range of 4 attack and a melee 4-up attack, 3 combat dice. Their hits do 4 damage. They have 18 health, so they're not pushovers, these shaman. There's the elite chart there. And then the brutal side, a little bit more powerful there. And then we have our normal Serpent Men warriors. They are part of a different tribe. They slither. That means they move through enemies, and they also change targets each turn. Darkstone weapons and tribal shields. They only have melee attacks. They only roll 2d6. Their damage is only 3, health 6, and a defense of 2. So adding these to the core sets when these were originally coming out really did up the ante. It really did make the game feel like kind of exponentially more fun and difficult because, like I've said before, the enemies in the core sets are kind of basic. Okay, and real quick here, let's take a look at a couple of the models. So here is our regular Serpent Man model. I liked the way these guys turned out. I especially liked the way the bases turned out. And here is our shaman, our Serpent Man shaman. Okay, then next up, we are going to take a look at the Masters of the Void. I like these guys a lot. These guys are really cool. So in the Void Between Worlds, the Void, it's kind of like the Warp Stone, the Warp Drive Stone from 40K and from Warhammer Fantasy with the Skaven. I could not remember the word Skaven. I was going to say the Ratmen. That's not right. But the Void is kind of like this magical eldritch force that has corrupted the universe, and the Darkstone has kind of like opened a portal from the Void into our world, and so we are now having to deal with these Void sorcerers and Void powers. But in the Void Between Worlds, outside of space and time, eldritch horrors beyond fear or imagination reside. These ancient beings come in many forms, from malign entities of hate and rage to writhing masses of tentacles, to fiendish sorcerers locked in towers of knowledge and madness. These masters of the void extend their tendrils of influence through the cracks in reality that bridge countless worlds across existence. Of all of these dreaded beings, void hounds and void sorcerers are some of the most frightening. Void hounds are beastly creatures that stalk their prey from beyond the veil, hunting in packs and phasing through the barriers of reality to strike. While void sorcerers are nefarious mages that use dark and powerful magic, seeking out occult knowledge and collecting arcane tomes and artifacts to add to their vaunted vaults of Valator. To fight these fiends is to stare into the abyss. I've read some people who say that the lore writing in Shadows of Brimstone isn't up to par with other games. I completely disagree. I think Jason Hill does a fantastic job of writing this flavor text. And you can clearly tell that he got his start with Games Workshop, with doing fan stuff for them. So we're going to learn a little bit about your Void Sorcerers, your Void Hounds, some new cards. Now, a lot of these expansions will add like a few pieces of gear or maybe some artifacts to mix in. I did not pull those out just because they are mixed in into huge stacks. And like I said, there is so many that it would just have taken me so long to pull everything out looking for all of the little expansion symbols. But with this pack, you aren't going to get quite as many cards, but you will get this Void Sorcerer, so the Void Magus, or Magus. This is kind of like a more powerful sorcerer. I love the drawing on that card. That is super cool. And they do have a resin mini for this guy, I know that. And he and the sorcerers will use this Void magic. Now this deck here, I think it consists of 2 copies, and I'll discuss why I have 2 copies of this set in just a minute. But you have spells like Disintegration, and you have different levels, so this is kind of cool. They will cast it at different levels. Voice of Hate, Wave of Mutation, not Wave of Mutilation, Pixies fans. Void Chant, Shimmering Aura, Void Chant, Torment, Persecution, Void Chant, Summoning Ritual, Regeneration Aura, and Reading from the Book of Tarn. Maybe this is just one set. I might have my duplicate cards somewhere else. But they do have ranged, maybe some of the different targeting, a little bit here about different void magic, void bolts, and your spell level, and void chanting. And then you will have 2 new missions, a little detail about your void magus there. And the two new missions are called Hunted, and the second is Call of the Void. And then a little FAQ and some clarifications, and then another little optional rule. To make the mission feel more like a descent into madness of the void, roll a d6 for every encounter that would be drawn during the adventure. On the roll of a 1, 2, or 3, you use normal mine encounters. On the roll of a 4, 5, or 6, instead draw a world card and then an encounter from that other world. So that's kind of cool. I do like those little optional rules if you want to just add a little bit more theme. And then we have our two enemies that this is going to come with. We have our Void Hounds. Initiative 7. These guys are really fast. And their defense is based upon the Void Hound's defense is equal to the current initiative level in turn order. Void Hounds may move through other models. So if you are a really fast hero and you attack at a higher initiative level, they are going to be harder to hit. That is a super cool power that they have. I love that. It always makes fighting them, especially when you have somebody who's playing the gunslinger and they're used to just picking things off really fast at the top of the turn. Well, hitting these guys at the top of the turn at like initiative 8 or whatever is very, very difficult. So really cool power here. It rewards slower characters, making the slower characters want to attack these guys. Then laying in wait and pack attack. They roll 6d6 when they hit, and they hit on a 3 up. However, they only do 1 damage each, so not too bad, and they do only have 5 health. And there is the elite chart, and there is the brutal side there. And then these bad boys, I love these guys. The Void Sorcerers, they have shootout. They cast Void Magic, so they cast ranged spells. They have this Void Bolt with a range of 16. Shots 3, damage 2, ignores defense. They have a Phase Dagger and Void Shields. They're immune to critical hits unless adjacent. So they only roll 1 combat die when they do their normal melee attack. And the P die is a special die that I think has like 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, or I can't remember the exact number. I'll have to look at it. So their damage is variable. It's one of the only enemies that has variable damage. And they have a defense of 2 and a 15 health. But they will be casting that magic, which makes them far more powerful than what their card relays here. And the reason I have 2 sets of those, I do have 2 sets, is because when I first went to use the Minwax, the Poly Shade on my minis, I thought I was going to use black on the enemies, and I just hated the way it looked. I did not like that, and so I bought a new set to go ahead and use the brown on the enemies. So again, I really like these guys. They're kind of Mind Flayer looking Cthulhu type humanoid dudes. And then we have our hounds here with their curly tongues. So really fun, really cool little enemy set to fight against. Okay, and last up today, we are going to take a look at the Undead Outlaws. Now this pack here, I think I bought this on eBay, and I believe it was from somebody's Kickstarter set, because the book, what we're going to see later is when you buy something from Flying Frogs on Kickstarter, you will get all of these books that come with the Kickstarter version in a single book. So sometimes when you buy things used, 2 things happen. You will either, the person is actually smart and nice and considerate, and they will cut up their book and send you the pages. Or 2 times I've purchased something and the person who sold it forgot to include the pages from their Kickstarter book, which does render the entire expansion somewhat unplayable. So I had to contact them and explain, hey, you need to cut up your Kickstarter book because part of what you are selling to me is in that book. I do have, I think my Belial's information is a photocopy, which I was fine with a color copy. So if you do buy used stuff on eBay for things that are included in the Kickstarter booklet, make sure that you are going to get your complete information package from the seller. Little pro tip there. Okay, so deluxe enemy pack, the Undead Outlaws. Outlaws are a common occurrence throughout the region around the ruins of Brimstone. Even before the town blew and the portals began to open, the gold rush and darkstone rush that grew the town out of control also lured in outlaws and bandits by the thousands. Once the devastation occurred and the darkness came, countless numbers of those outlaws fell into shadow. Some became mutants and others fell to the curse of the lycanthropes, the werewolves, or began dabbling in dark magics, and many began to rise from the grave as undead. It wasn't long before the undead outlaws fell back into their old ways of robbing, rustling, and mayhem. Perhaps it was just faint memories of their old lives seeping back in, or maybe they have a cold purpose and with a mind for revenge on the land of the living. The most famous of all is a dark, rotting figure known only as the Undead Gunslinger. Whoever he was in life, no one can say for sure, but in death, he has become the most cold killer in the land, earning the nickname of the fastest dead in the West. He travels the roads and shadows, challenging any who cross his path to a duel. Few survive to tell the tale. Feared for his quick draw, his cold silence, and his sinister stare, the undead gunslinger is an unstoppable force back from hell and hungry for revenge. This is one of my favorite expansions for the game. I love the minis in this expansion. I think they are awesome. We have two different models for the Undead Outlaws. You have a fantastic model for this Undead Gunslinger. And you do get some cool new cards. So one of the neat things is the Undead Gunslinger has this challenge, and it's a duel. It's a duel to the death, kind of. And when the legendary gunslinger roams the mines and roads, challenging those unlucky enough to cross his path to a duel. So sometimes you will have to have a face-off against this, the Undead Gunslinger. That is super cool. And the Undead Gunslinger will also have different kinds of shot that he might be using. Terror shot, the Devil's Calling, Grip of Death, a Cursed Bullet, Rapid Fire, or Revenge from the Grave. And then, of course, when you face your Undead Outlaws, you don't know what ruthless gang they are from. They might be the Macmillan Boys, or the Trailblazer Gang, or Tukavoka's Border Raiders, the Lost Marshals, or the Rooker Gang. So those are your cards that you're going to get with that. They are shootouts, so they do shoot from range. I don't think they have, yeah, they do have some melee attacks. And they do some targeting rules, some assault rules, your famous Undead Outlaws. Talks a little bit about curses that you might come across. And then it's going to give you some more rules, details about your Undead Gunslinger and how to set up the face-off. And then finally, you are going to get your two new missions, and that is Wanted, Dead or Alive. And then you have Revenge of the Dead. Great drawing there. Man, I wish I had artist credits in these books. And then a little bit of an FAQ, clarification, and a painting guide there. So our Undead Gunslinger, like I said, this is maybe my favorite mini in the whole game. I just think he is so badass looking. I love him. I love skeletons in games. I love fighting skeletons and undead warriors. I think that is super cool. And then here are your two different Undead Outlaw sculpts there. I like how that guy's missing his bottom jaw. I always like that in a skeleton warrior when they're missing the bottom jaw. I don't know why. It's so cool. Recently, I think I've mentioned before, but I recently have been rewatching the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and I absolutely love the first three. And that in that first one, and there's that sequence called, I think it's called Dance in the Moonlight, where all the skeleton warriors are cleaning the boat, and man, that has some amazing effects and some just super cool looking skeleton pirates. But the Undead Outlaw, so he is a legendary. And you know what? We just took a look at those two new enemy packs that I bought with the legendary enemies that you can add to the Scafford Gang and the the Wasteland Warriors, and I've completely forgot, and I just noticed that he is also has that legendary tag there. So that was something that they were thinking about quite a while ago, because this is an older expansion. So that's cool. I'd never noticed that before. He is super fast, initiative 8, terror 2. He has his Dead Man 6 shooter. He's the fastest dead in the West. He has endurance 3, regeneration 2. He hits on a 3+ with range. He only hits on a 5+ with melee, so not too bad. He has 10 health plus 3 per hero and 4 defense. And then there's a quick look at the brutal side. Man, so he really ramps up his melee attack on brutal. He hits on a 2+, rolls 6 dice, and each hit is going to do 6 damage. Man, that truly is brutal. And then here we have our regular Undead Outlaws. They have Shootout, Fear 2. They're going to be fighting with their twin irons with a range of 6, shots 4. They will be an infamous outlaw, Undead Outlaw gang. They are gritty. They're only going to roll. They're not very powerful in melee at all. And then 5 health, 4 defense. There's a look at their elite chart. And then there is a quick look at the brutal side. So not too bad. But all right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that look. And like I said, we're going to be continuing to look at enemies for quite a few episodes. So I hope you enjoyed this part of the show. We will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.